The Outlaws No Way Out is a 2023 film. It is a sequel to The Outlaws and The Roundup. It's the third film in the Crime City series, which was created. So the first film came out in 2017. It was a pretty awesome, underrated, gritty little crime thriller. And then they made a sequel that came out last year, and then this year another one was fast-tracked. So this one has Detective Ma returning. He is now, it's been 7 years since the events of the Roundup, and he's just, doing his job as a detective. However, he comes across a woman who fell out of an 8th-story building. There's more to the case, and there's a new drug called Hyper, a synthetic drug created by the yakuza. So he starts investigating to, get involved, and that sort of brings him into stopping a mysterious criminal who's working his own deal against the yakuza in order to cut them out. And of course, it involves a lot of bloodshed. So this movie is a solid sequel. It's the same director of the second film. Don Lee's back. He's charismatic as ever. A lot of great levity, humor, action. It's a very solid and entertaining sequel. However, for me, I felt like it was missing something. And that is that this movie seemed a little bit on the rushed side in terms of like story, but also what makes it unique. The reason why I like the first and second film is because they are gritty and low stakes. They feel like something that could have happened in real life. The first movie was based off of like a gang sweep. The second film was based off of kidnappings that happen overseas. So this one doesn't really have a real life counterpart story. But if you're unfamiliar, The Roundup was actually the highest grossing Korean film of 2022 and 5th highest internationally. On a budget of $10 million, it made about 101 internationally. So it became a huge money-making hit. So they obviously rushed and wanted to make a few more sequels. So 3 and 4 are already on their way. So this is the third one. The movie's sort of missing that sort of grounded grittiness. And I think the filmmakers and the producers need to be careful with their new action franchise, because this could easily, turn into something like Fast and the Furious, where each movie gets a little bit more and more ridiculous. Because this movie does fall into the pit of, having some weird superhuman feats happen in the film, and not in a over-the-top action way, but it kind of like an incredulous sort of like, did that really just happen? And it almost evolves into parody at times, so you got to be careful. Also, I think they need to change up something, because since this movie's not based off of any real-world event, the movie seems a little bit formulaic. I mean, it's missing that emotional core that drives Detective Ma. Like, he discovers this woman who fell out of the 8th floor of a building, and we find out that it was actually a homicide. It was done by a villain who she overdosed after he messed with their drinks, and then he pushed the body up, making it a homicide. And I thought that would be the emotional angle that would make Detective Ma try to catch the killers of this woman's family and give the family some closure, but that gets thrown out the window immediately. And the result is a lot of going into clubs and fighting henchmen, fighting yakuza, and it gets a little bit repetitive. Don Lee's a huge muscular presence. He's like the Korean Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I love him, but after you watch him punch out a dude for the 10th time and just take out thugs with ease, it becomes a little bit stale. I was waiting for that really big thug to give him some resistance or whatever, but the movie, it's still entertaining. It's got slick direction, but I noticed that there's more sporadic fights. Sometimes it just feels like they're having a fight just to throw in some action. Sometimes the camera work is a little bit too experimental. Same director as the second film. He's just trying a little bit more, but maybe a change of director or more effort into the script, so it doesn't seem like a placeholder movie in between the second and fourth film. So even though the movie has everything you need, it also had way too many characters, and a lot of the cop characters don't have much to do. So whenever Don Lee's on screen, it's just kind of like whatever, and the villains aren't very compelling this time around. There's no sense of cathartic excellence. Waiting for some villains to get their comeuppance is great, but this movie didn't really feel like that. It felt a little generic. So it's still an entertaining film, and I enjoyed it, but it definitely, the filmmaker should be careful moving on with how they do tone. So I give The Outlaws No Way Out a 6.5 out of 10.